Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Gunnildur and I have no idea what I'm going to do with this intro. So, October reading, it went. Not as well as I was planning, but hey, that just happens sometimes. So honestly this was my first attempt at trying to decide what I read in advance. Which, I've seen a lot of people do. And apart from my time back in school, which is ages ago, I haven't really done that. I don't tend to plan what I'm going to be reading, so this was interesting. Unfortunately, this just wasn't. It was yet another one of those months where I just wasn't in the mood to read. And I still managed to read some, just not all of the books that I wanted to read, so that's all the negativity that I'm gonna present in this video. We're done with negativity, we're gonna go with the positivity now. So these are the books that I did manage to finish, and honestly, let's start with the non-fiction. And these two books are actually connected with upcoming November. So these are workbooks by Trevena. I read 30 Days of Worldbuilding, an author's step-by-step guide to building fictional worlds. Have to say, very, very useful. It's a workbook, so you'll get like how this book is set up. It's day 23 magic, and then you get a page where that you can use to write in. Didn't do that because that's just not how I can't quite get into the habit of writing into books, except I think there's been one book, and that's because that book kind of annoyed me. Now I have to say, having read this book and this one, How to Create History, an author's guide to creating histories, myths and monsters, was again very, very useful, because I tend to forget to like a lot of people, I don't know everything that needs to go into a story before I start writing it. So it is extremely useful. This was another interesting thing, making a history work card. So you put in, you can make an event, description of the event, and roll in story, which, that's a lot of planning. I know that with my type of style, so far, I don't do that much planning, but it is really, really interesting, and just all the things that you can consider to enrich your story, enrich your world, that informs on what happens to your characters in the story. It's just one thing that I did notice with these books is that they end the same way. They have the same last pages, which is a word on info dumping and learning curves, and ideas dump. So I'm expecting that there are two other books by this author, that two workbooks that I have yet to read. Probably not gonna finish that before November, because we're starting on November the 1st with the writing, so but I do really, really like these books. They are really helpful. So yeah, if you're into writing and you need a little help with keeping things organized and working on your ideas and how to make the world real, in a sense, it wouldn't hurt to at least look into these books. Now, as for the fictions that I did read, I did manage 4, and they are all in the same theme. I'm going to turn the manga around so you can actually see the title. Speaking of manga, let's start with that. It's Junji's Dissolving Classroom. Now, Junji I read first well over a decade ago, when I was studying in another town that has a splendid library, and they had a lot of Junji. And unfortunately I don't have my own copies. I really do want, after reading this, I'm like, I kind of need to get my own copies of those stories, because listen, the man's a genius. Just the artwork itself is subtly terrifying. And how he writes characters, how he writes the villains, how he writes the things that are happening, how he writes the people to whom it happens, often without them noticing that it is happening. This just horror of the things that you don't just. I need to build up my collection of Junji. Now this book is basically about these two siblings. You can definitely tell that this little girl is not mentally stable. Her brother, he looks a little bit better, but he's not much better. I think he's definitely worse. I don't want to spoil this book because I really want you to read this manga. It's good. It's good. And I think it's no spoiler that since it, you can tell on the cover that something happens because of these characters that make other people melt. And I think honestly the one thing that I can say is that probably the most horrifying thing about this is the fact that even after the people have melted, they seem to still have sentience. And that's everything else considering everything else that happens in this book, the fact that people still have sentience and they're technically not people anymore, I think that's the most terrifying thing about this story. Also, it has the devil, and the devil does play his part. It's like, and it's so subtle. Like, it's not in your face, the devil is here. No, it's so subtle. It's so cool. It's terrifying, it's horrifying, but it's so cool. Just, Junji is a master. Another, and I'm not sure if this is, I'm hesitant to call it manga because I don't think it is. I think it's Korean. I'm not sure. I'm sorry. But at the very least, I'm gonna call it a graphic novel. And so it's apparently a Netflix original series. This is by, oh dear lord, I'm going to butcher some more names. Apologies. Yeon Sang-ho and Choi Gyu-Seok. I'm sorry. Trying is like, it's kind of like when other national people are whose national language isn't, or national language, whose words can I speak? It's like when people who are not Icelandic, I got around it, are trying to pronounce, let's say, Eyjafjallajökull. I do not fault you for not being able to pronounce it. It's a big word, and listen, my theory with, I'm getting off tangents, I'm sorry, but my rule of thumb is that when I encounter a word or a name that I am unfamiliar with, I try not to stress too much about it. I just aim at it and I fire away, and then I move on. It's gonna be the same with the names. Now, I do want to at least try my best to get names correct, because names are important. So that's, yeah. So enough about me, let's talk about this horrifying book. And I'm not gonna lie, this book is horrifying, it is terrifying, it is thrilling, and it's so cool. This book is so cool. Basically, hell is real, and it's not just other people. So no spoilers. Basically, this is about hell. Yeah, hell being real, and these demons are popping up and literally tearing people apart, dragging them to hell, and you know, pull them apart because they need to get at the soul to. So our main character is a detective who has his own devils. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. He has his own devils to drag, and his backstory is just beautifully portrayed. And honestly, every single character here, I feel for them. Except for the cult, like I can understand him. You get a lot of the cult leaders. Yeah, there's a cult because I mean, it's hell. It's this guy, this cult leader. I can feel for him, but he's full. I'm trying not to spoil things, but it's like so. Not only are there demons from hell or these hell beasts, popping up and violent murdering people, there is a cult and related groups and a cult leader and people doing horrible things because sins. And listen, what I want to show you, what can I show you that, oh, that would be so cool, but it's kind of like gruesome. The hell beasts look like this, and they are not very concerned about how many people they kill on their quest to get the one person that they are going to kill. Is like, dude, damage control, non-existent. This book is a movie in a book form. And this is volume 1 of I don't know how many. I'm not sure if I can handle more volumes of this because it's just my heart. Like, apart from the horror and the terror of it, it's just this is the type of book that is so good. Like this sort of terror and horror that is good because it makes you feel for the characters. I at least very much felt for the detective. I'm like, and the old lady. I like the old lady. What happened to the old lady? I'm pissed. Because it didn't really have anything to do with Hellbeast. It had everything to do with humans being assholes. And yeah, so that's it. I'm not sure if I would ever watch the Netflix original series. Because if I can barely handle a book and I can always, you know, close it and put it to the side if I'm, you know, if it gets to be too much, I don't think I could handle television version. No. So yeah, definitely recommend this book. Maybe if you've seen the Netflix series, tell me what that's like. But like I said, I'm probably not gonna watch it myself. Oh, now I've got 2 books left. This one, Mariana Enriquez. I probably butchered that as well. The Dangers of Smoking in Bed. First off, I love this cover. I think this one was recommended by Jack Edwards, probably the most famous booktuber on YouTube. This is a collection of short stories. Now, Enriquez is a Argentinian short story author, and I really like these stories. I kind of bought them on the premise that they are like horror stories, like ghostly and terrifying and false, you know, all that fun stuff. like rotting little ghost, heartbeat fetishes, curses and witches and meat easily stories is a luscious, bewitching nightmare. Each one builds up a steady, thrilling dread until the final lines when the true horror is revealed. I adore this book. Kirsty Logan, author of The Gracekeepers. And I have to agree, I didn't... Not all these stories hit the mark for me, which is to be expected. This is a collection of 12 short stories. Now the longest one is about 50 pages. And that one is... I mean... I'm not sure which one was my favorite though. I really like the first one, with Little Angelique. Angelita Unearthed. Longest is Kids Who Come Back, that's about 50. Which one did I like the best? I kinda like the Well, because it has everything to do with agoraphobia and evil family members, honestly. Like, but to pick a favorite, I really liked Angelita. That's the first story. That's the a little rotting little ghost girl. The Well has a witch, and the witch is not the worst like, she's not an evil person. She's not an evil person. And I was a little bit confused about Old Lady of the Quarry. At the same time, I quite understood it, but at the same time, not, which I do quite like, because that does make you think a little bit. Like as I said, not every single story hit the mark for me. The titular story, The Dangers of Smoking in Bed, read more like, I don't know, a journal entry. But you know, that's to be expected. We can't like everything. I have to say though, if you're considering this book, and I do recommend it, there is... it doesn't pull its punches when it comes to sexual matters, let's put it like that. There is very frank language about male and female sexual organs and exploits and behavior, and particularly when it comes to female solo time. I'm trying really hard to talk my way around this. I'm trying to stay polite. And if you can handle, like, when I say frank, I mean frank. Like, very. It's not pornographic, at the very least. I don't feel that it's pornographic, but you know, we don't have the same metrics on you know, the same tolerance level to things. But I do really like this collection as a whole, and I have to recommend it. Yeah, but it does not pull its punches. Some of the description is just like, which honestly, thinking about it, good, because that's kind of what I'm looking for. Didn't really know I was looking for it, but when I found it, I'm like, actually that hits me really hard, and I kind of appreciate it. And the last book is a children's book. Another collection of stories. This is The Sister Who Ate Her Brothers and Other Gruesome Tales by Jen Campbell and illustrated by Adam de Souza. And I love the illustrations. Just like the cover. Just, I love it. Now what's my favorite? Now these are a collection of fairy tales and folk tales from all across the globe. And what Campbell does that is wonderful is she does the traditional thing, that when you are when a storyteller is repeating a story, something in the story changes, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. And what Campbell did consciously was to change few details, such as some of the genders, sexuality, and disability representation. And I have to say, I do really appreciate that she did so. Because I really can do with more representation in my stories. Thank you. Particularly in horror stories, like, add that. Just every story, I would like that. And the fact that, like, there's a story from, I think, Ireland about a fisherman and a merman who fall in love. And I honestly didn't notice. I thought that they were always just talking together with sign language because the merman was breathing underwater. I kind of took it as that, but well, turns out it's because the fisherman is deaf. And I really appreciate that. There's also a really cute story. I cannot remember where it's originally from, but it's about a princess who gets cursed by a warlock, not a witch, a warlock. And he kind of curses her in a way that essentially benefits her. Basically, he says he takes her hair, because he was the only person in the whole kingdom who the parents forgot to invite to their christening, and he's pissed off at it. But so he shows up, but instead of like pricking her thumb or something, he steals her hair and says that, on her 18th I think it is, I'm paraphrasing, but on her 18th birthday, wait, I really need to tell the story better because, oh my lord, I love that story. Oh yeah, it's The Woman on the Glass Mountain. I love that one. Let's see. It's from Spain. Yeah. He steals her hair and the headband her grandmother had made for her. And he says, when she's older, whichever suitor can retrieve her hair will deserve her hand in marriage. I'll keep it safe for now. Basically, he says, if I don't approve of them, they're not getting to marry her. And I'm like, listen, you're kind of being better than a traditional fairy godmother right now. So the girl grows up without a hair. She meets a woman who is a librarian, and they kind of like click together and fall in love. And there's, they try to this little story of three princes. And listen, the rap, I absolutely adore it. But I don't really know with The Woman on the Glass Mountain which one I adore more. The fact that the princess falls in love with a woman who goes and just bams her way through everything. Or if I like the warlock more, because he's kind of like, listen, I'm a gatekeeper for her safety. I kind of like the warlock. Honestly, like, he's like the villain, but what he does benefits the princess because... but yes, this book, it kind of... I'm getting excited, but this book really reminds me of... it was a collection of short stories back when I was a kid called Græna Höndin. It may have been called like The Green Hand. It probably was translated. And it was a collection of absurd stories. Some of them were horror stories, some were ghost stories, some were like ridiculous. And I think this is better actually. These stories like, yes, there is certain absurdity within these stories which is to be expected, and I love it, but they're good and I love it. What else? Also there's one story where in a traditional story the wife gets punished, but in this story it gets turned on, and I love that because there's a ridiculous amount of stories of, you know, fairy tales and all that where the wife gets punished for not obeying her abusive husband. Quite a lot of those stories, and I'm really tired of those. So I'm really happy that there are now stories where the husband get a comeuppance. So yeah, these are the 6 lovely books that I read in October that I managed to finish. There were other books that I was, you know, dipping into, but I didn't quite finish those one of those months. But hopefully next month I will manage to finish quite a few more, because next month is going to be my manga month and I am so excited for it. So hopefully stay tuned, and I really hope that there's something else on this channel that you would like to watch, and stick around for November because I'm doing that now. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I will hopefully see you again in another video of mine. So bless, take care, see ya.